Hello, I'm the 10-minute English teacher. Let's get you exam ready. Today we're thinking about power and conflict poetry for AQA GCSE English literature, and I'm going to be providing you with summary and analysis for Ozymandias. Okay, Ozymandias by Shelley. It's an absolutely fantastic poem about somebody who has spoken to somebody who's been to Egypt and has witnessed the ruins of a statue of a once great ruler, Ozymandias, and all that's left of that is rubble. So you're going to have a reading of the poem from me. We're going to think about the themes, the structure, and then the key quotes that you need to know for the exam. So we'll start by thinking about what the poem is about. So the poem retells the account of a visitor to Egypt who's viewed the ruins of a statue made in tribute to an ancient ruler, Ozymandias. The ruler used to be powerful and cruel, but all that remains of his empire and influence is desert and rubble. Now, Shelley was a romantic poet, and their focus was the power of nature, and they believed that the key to understanding life and death was to respect the power and beauty of the natural world. So this is in keeping with romantic tradition. So we'll start with the reading, and then we're going to think about what the key themes are in the poem. We'll think about the structure of it, and then we'll be looking at the key quotes that you need to know for the exam. And we'll start with the reading now. So Ozymandias by Shelley. I met a traveller from an antique land who said 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear, my name is Ozymandias, king of kings, look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains, round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Ozymandias by Shelley. Now, if this is the named poem in the exam, the way you want to start is by just very quickly and concisely explaining how the named poem and the poem that you choose to write about in comparison relate to the theme in the question. So I've given you an example of this here for Ozymandias. So Ozymandias recalls someone's tale about their visit to a faraway land where they saw the ruins of a statue of an ancient ruler, Ozymandias. The poem serves to remind us that power and influence, and therefore life, do not last forever, and that there is no greater power than the power of the natural world and time. Over time, it has returned his empire to desert. Once I've done that, the next job is to say something about the structure. So I'm going to write a paragraph about the structure of each. And if I can be comparative while I do that, all the better. Here's an example of analysis of structure for Ozymandias. So the poem's use of iambic pentameter could be seen to reflect the ongoing and infinite passing of time, which is something the poem explores. Midway through the poem, there's a volta, and the focus of the poem changes to the loss of the kingdom to time. Okay, so you might have analysed every single line in the poem, or you might have not read the poem at all, and this might be the first time you're experiencing the poem. Whatever is fine, but ultimately, when it comes to the exam, you're only going to need 3 or 4 quotes. In 45 minutes, when you're writing about 2 poems, you're going to be writing about 6 or 7 or 8 quotes. You're not going to be writing about every single line in the poem. So if you know 3 or 4 quotes really confidently, you're ready for the exam. So we've got 4 here to think about. So we've got lone and level sands stretch far away. We've got a little bit of sibilance here with the sands stretching, and you could argue that helps to make them seem a little bit more significant and mysterious. We can argue that they're a metaphor for time, the passing of time or nature, and this poem is trying to share that idea that time and the natural world are much more powerful and significant than our lives, regardless of our power and influence. That idea is taken further when Shelley mentions the decay of that colossal wreck. And that noun decay is eliciting thoughts of death in the reader. It's something that has tones of death about it. Perhaps Shelley is suggesting to us that ultimately, regardless of our power and influence, we are all subject to death. And that's something that is inescapable for us all. We've got sneer of cold command, and that noun sneer is effective. He was a leader that took pleasure in oppressing others. And we've also got the idea of cold here, and that's quite effective because perhaps that serves to single him out as something striking and different in the heat of the desert, sort of where he would have ruled many centuries ago. And we've got look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. It's an imperative reflecting the authority that Ozymandias once had. And we've also got this biblical undertone here. It's as if he's addressing God himself to suggest that his power is awesome and godlike. And of course, that isn't something that saves him from death, and the passing of time almost erases all memory of his influence or being whatsoever. And I think that Romantic poets wanted us to sort of come to terms with that, understand that, in order to be able to really appreciate the lives that we have. Okay, if you want to take your revision further, here are some ideas. So you should be able to recall what the poem's about and what the key themes are that are explored in it. So make yourself a flashcard and write down some ideas. You should be able to explain the effect of the poem, the structure of the poem. So if you don't, feel free to use the play bar and revisit that. And take those key terms away, get those taken down so that you can revisit them in your own time. And you should be able to recall 4 key quotes and analyse them. So can you get those written down unaided? And if you can't, maybe have a watch of the video one more time just to make sure that you're really confident and comfortable with this poem. Okay, check out the other videos on my channel. I'll continue to add content. Feel free to ask for something you'd like to see me cover in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and keep revising.